Welcome, Rotarians, and good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Josh.
Thanks, Bob. Welcome to the last Rotary meeting of August. I am President Josh Braby. Thanks to Board Member Mr. Scott Bennett for greeting again today. I appreciate it. It's kind of become your retirement part-time gig. So as the last meeting of every month, we will have a moment of inspiration today. If that is of interest to you, let Kitty know, and we'll make sure to get you filled in for those meetings. Today, Mr. Bob Bedrow will provide a brief moment of inspiration, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, the four-way test, and then we will do our greeting. Bob.
There are those in life who earn our appreciation and admiration for their great works. Those who give and gave of themselves to inspire others to do the same. They convey a spirit of caring, giving, and love to greater humanity. One such person was Dolly Parton. In life, she supported communities in need. Dolly donated to medical research that led to one of the COVID-19 vaccines being developed. A mainstay of her charity work was the Imagination Library program. She created to send books on a monthly basis to children 5 and younger. She created this program because her father could not read. About 31,000 children in Iowa have benefited from the Imagination Library program. More than 332 million books have been sent since its inception in 1995. After a deadly fire in Sevier County in 2016, she held a telethon with other stars that raised $13 million. Dolly continued her support by pledging $1,000 a month for 6 months to about 900 families who suffered the loss of their home. She had a purpose to serve, not only through her immense talent, but with a caring and loving and inclusive heart to bring others along on life's journey. I'd like to share some quotes from Dolly Parton. If you don't like the road you're walking, start paving another one. Dreams have no value if they're not equipped with wings. Find out who you are and do it on purpose. You'll never do a whole lot unless you're brave enough to try. Don't get so busy making a living that you forget to make a life. She once said, when I'm done, I could rest in peace, knowing I've done my best. And she also said, I hope when my time comes, I'm leaving something behind that others can use to lift themselves up. For each day, we have the opportunity to contribute to another's life and perhaps make a difference in that life. Let us all embrace and seek those opportunities. For Dolly Parton lived a life of the Rotary motto, service above self. Let's be Dolly. Thank you. Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now the four-way test.
Is it true? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Now greet your fellow Rotarians.
See ya. What's up, Jordan? Steve.
Leslie.
That's one of my favorites. That's when I started taking her serious.
Okay, we have no guests today, so we'll get right into Where in the World. We have a handful of Where in the Worlds today. So for those that don't know, we are Club 27 out of over 45,000 clubs in over 200 countries. So we do a little tour of where everyone has been, and we show that off and talk about it. So we've got past President Dave Busick with wife Laura, pictured at Split Rock Lighthouse in Minnesota. It says they biked there, and I'm hoping that doesn't mean from. So, quite the journey. Next, speaking of travel, we go to India.
Oops.
Kidding, that's Doug. Don't worry, Doug's back. We'll close with Doug. But Erlyn Kakanat and her family went to India and had quite the journey, which we talked about a little bit before. So first time for her in 14 years and first time for her 2 children to attend. They were there for 3 weeks. Let's see, I don't want to mess this up because there's a lot of great information. They got to experience the traditional form of Indian classical dance going back to the 17th century. Erlyn says her bucket list was unlocked when they took an elephant ride, which that would be pretty cool. And they are India's official not Erlyn, but the elephants. Their official national heritage animal and represent Lord Ganesha. Okay. Wisdom and good fortune. So, very cool trip. If you want to learn more about that, certainly talk to Erlyn. And I poked her to also be a part of a fuel, so we'll hear more coming up. So, and last but never least, Mr. Past President Doug Saltzgaber. That's it. That's all I got. The largest popcorn ball. So if you're going somewhere fun or you want to share an interesting story about your travels, please let us know. Share a picture with Kitty, and we will gladly share it. Okay, we have Claudia Schabel, who will introduce our guest speaker today.
Thank you, President Josh. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Katie Patchett. Since January of 2024, Katie has served as the Executive Director of Capital Crossroads, a regional collaboration of multi-sector leaders, which I have the pleasure to serve on and see Katie in action. I could read Katie's bio here today, but let me tell you, this woman knows how to unite a room. She also knows how to incite collaboration. She knows how to share knowledge. With that, Katie, please join us. Help me welcome Katie Patchett.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Josh and Kitty and Claudia, for the introduction and allowing me to be here with you all today. I love to see folks coming together to share space. Thank you, Josh. Coming together to share space and make connections and strengthen those connections. It's just really nice to see community building in this form. And it's a nice way to break up the week. So thank you for allowing me to be here with you today. As Claudia mentioned, I'm Katie Patchett. I'm the Executive Director of Capital Crossroads. I found my way into this role in January 2024 by way of experiences both in state and federal government and in the private sector. Now this is a little bit of a quasi-nonprofit role, so really grateful for the opportunity and honored to be the steward of this initiative and to share a little bit more about what we've been working on with you all here today. It's my understanding that Capital Crossroads has been here in the past, years ago, to share about some of the work of the initiative. And I'm happy to share some of what we've been doing in the last 2.5 years to help continue to build community here in Central Iowa. A little bit of background about Capital Crossroads. So we are a unique initiative. Essentially, we exist as a regional collaboration of leaders and organizations across central Iowa from business, government, nonprofit, and education sectors, all working together to create economic growth, community betterment, and community vitality and quality of life for everyone who lives, works, and plays in our communities. Capital Crossroads is tasked with creating a shared regional vision plan that folks can align efforts around and pool resources into in order to have a greater impact. And we're really looking at how we can create better opportunities and sustainable pathways to success and well-being for all of our neighbors. We're a little bit different in that we are not necessarily a direct service provider. We are not a business that's out there providing a specific product or service to a targeted population. We don't charge for services out in community. Our most important role is to work together to create a community-informed vision plan and then bring a diverse body of people and organizations together to bring it to life. So we are out there, as Claudia mentioned, we are sharing information, we're communicating works in progress and celebrating successes. We're convening diverse stakeholders to have these conversations about the challenges and opportunities facing our communities. We are adding capacity to organizations and initiatives that align with our goals, and we're helping catalyze some large-scale initiatives that will help move us further along in our shared goals as well. A few fast facts about Capital Crossroads. So this is currently the third iteration, and it's called the Capital Crossroads Roadmap to Opportunity and Prosperity for All. I will call it the roadmap or the plan for short, so you don't have to listen to me say that phrase repeatedly. But Capital Crossroads was originally launched in 2011 when a small group of regional leaders came together to figure out how they could harness some of the energy and the unique opportunities in central Iowa in order to continue to give us that competitive edge here in Greater Des Moines and also create opportunities for everyone. Thus was born Capital Crossroads, this regional collaborative body that convenes on a regular basis and serves as a regional activation platform to incite progress across the region. We have many successes throughout the course of Capital Crossroads. There have been 2 previous iterations and now this is the third. The first 2 iterations were 5-year vision plans, and this version is a little bit different. It's a little bit bigger. They're trying to build on the momentum and the successes of Capital Crossroads 1.0 and 2.0 and address some larger structural systems level issues now that we have a model that works. And so in the past, we've looked at projects like Icon Water Trails that was born of conversations and inspiration out of Capital Crossroads, the Here We Grow housing campaign, the Make It Okay mental health campaign that came to central Iowa during the pandemic when folks were struggling and we needed to figure out how to best support our communities. The Cultivation Corridor, how can we harness some of that economic opportunity and energy connecting Ames and Greater Des Moines? So a lot of really great successes coming out of that. I'll also say too, Capital Crossroads is kind of hard to measure the exact impact and the breadth and the scale of the impact because you never know the true value of the conversations and connections that come out of convening folks in space like this. If you think about the weekly lunches that you have in Rotary and the connections that you've made and what you've learned and how you've carried that forward in your life and in your work and how other folks have done the same, you're never going to be able to fully capture that, but it has so much value in moving our goals further along. This roadmap runs through 2040. It was launched in January of 2024. I started the week afterwards. And again, trying to address some of those bigger spring structural issues rather than looking at infrastructure projects and initiatives. And we are working together to make that happen. Our footprint now includes Polk, Dallas, and Warren counties. So that 3-county area, we really rely on our volunteer leaders like Claudia and others out in community to help activate the work. And we are currently housed at the Greater Des Moines Partnership, so just kitty corner across the street. We like to talk about Capital Crossroads as the community's plan. And when we say that, we mean that the community informed it and the community will benefit from it. This was the most robust planning process for Capital Crossroads to date. It took several months and it took hundreds of people, many, many hours going out and engaging not only members of community in different neighborhoods, but also organizational leaders from across sectors, from across communities. There was written feedback provided, there were interviews, focus groups, and also data and research collection that was happening to get both a qualitative and quantitative look at the current and future trends that were going to have the biggest impact in central Iowa. Through all of those community conversations, a community-driven plan was created, and there were 6 issues that continued to bubble to the top of all of those conversations as the areas where we really needed to focus on and make sure that we were engaging in collaborative conversations in order to continue to create opportunity here in Central Iowa for everybody. Those are called the 6 critical outcomes in our shared vision plan. And 2 of those weave throughout the entire plan, regardless of which issue we're talking about. They're the 2 lenses that we use for every work project that we engage. The first of which is hopefully familiar to folks in this room, regionalism. We know that we are stronger when we work together, that we cannot be independently operating in communities and expect to have the same degree of information sharing and success than if we are working together. So we really believe in that regional collaboration model. We want to have diverse perspectives, people across geographic boundaries, in shared space to have more informed conversations and make sure that we're moving the ball further. The second of those lenses is equity and inclusion. So knowing that inclusive economies are stronger economies, we're coming up on a year since James Chung, economist at the national level, came into Greater Des Moines with the Greater Des Moines Partnerships Regional Summit and delivered a whole bunch of really compelling data on how inclusive economies are more resilient, they grow faster, they're stronger, they're more beneficial for the folks who live in these communities. So we want to give everybody equitable opportunity to participate in the economy. We know that when we all do better, we all do better. We also know that this region has become and will continue to become even more diverse. That's a superpower. You look at a school district like Des Moines Public Schools, diversity's not coming, it's already here. So how do we make sure that we are working together to provide opportunity across that spectrum of folks who are living in our community so they all have a chance to participate more fully and find success and be integrated in the community? The other 4 critical outcomes that community and research identified as priorities are hopefully familiar to folks in this room: placemaking, job growth, workforce housing, and education. So those are the areas that we really want to try and make an impact through the work that's happening under the umbrella of this regional vision plan. And if those are our 6 critical outcomes, the 4 cornerstones are the focused groupings of goals that are going to allow us to do the work and drive the work that's going to get us to those outcomes. So if you think of cornerstones as inputs, regional outcomes as the outputs. If you're familiar with previous iterations of Capital Crossroads, it used to have a 10 capitals structure. So folks in this room might have been involved in groups like social capital, political capital, physical capital, natural capital. 10 is a lot of focus areas. And when you're a community plan, you're also going to be reflective of a lot of the priorities of a diverse community. So that makes sense. But to focus efforts a little bit more to maximize impact, some of the feedback that Capital Crossroads received was try to have a little bit more of a focus grouping of goals. Thus was born the 4 cornerstones of this initiative. Those are economic opportunity and prosperity. That's where we're going to be talking about job growth, entrepreneurship, leadership in different sectors, making sure that new Iowans have a chance to participate in the economy. Community and cultural connections, so that's where a lot of that placemaking is going to come into play, cultural and community celebrations, parks and recreation, arts, things like that. Thriving neighborhoods, so not only the housing that allows people to exist in our communities, but the amenities and the structure that's going to allow those communities to last and provide opportunity. So public transportation, making sure that there's sustainability, that there's water quality in our communities, and then of course, youth investment. And that is really a cradle to career approach from Capital Crossroads. We wanna make sure that not only is there strong investment in quality early childhood education through childcare and pre-K, but also career pathways that are setting people up for lifelong success. Still a lot of priorities listed in those 4 cornerstones. And so leadership decided we were going to take a strategic focus and really hone in on 2 areas for the first few years of this plan. And those are workforce housing and education. So that is really where we are focusing our time and our talent in the first few years of this plan. It certainly won't be the only place that we focus, but we know that education and housing are issues that affect every sector, that affect every community, not only in Central Iowa, but statewide. So they were a really good place for us to start and bring everybody to the table, use common language, talk about goals that we can all start working on together, and make sure that we're advancing opportunity for everybody. Our regional council is one of Capital Crossroads' superpowers. This is a volunteer group of 47 leaders that represent more than 40 organizations across all 3 of our counties and all 4 of those sectors, business, government, nonprofit, and education, who are coming together and serving as leaders and liaisons to the community and to their networks on behalf of the plan. So this is a really diverse group of stakeholders. They all have different areas of expertise. They have different lived experiences. They have different access to resources and perspectives on issues. And we know that when we have diverse stakeholders in shared space having conversations, that we're gonna have better perspective, we're gonna learn from one another, and we're gonna have stronger strategies coming out of those conversations. These folks volunteer time, talent, and treasure in order to activate this work. They're really the ones who are out there taking what we talk about in these shared spaces and then activating it through their organizations, through their volunteer groups, through their personal efforts. It's just really an incredible group of folks. One of the positions that I held previously, I was just talking to Josh, was working as a district director and deputy chief of staff for a member of Congress. And I did that for 4 years in a very competitive congressional seat. And we saw a lot of folks who weren't necessarily as willing to come to the same table and have conversations where they were willing to hear other perspectives and learn from one another and work together to find shared solutions that might not be perfect, but we're going to help make things better. Congress didn't do that nearly so well as the Capital Crossroads Regional Council does. So it's a point of pride for me to be in space with folks like Claudia. I saw Artist Kelly is another new member for you all. She's also on the Regional Council. But people who genuinely have an appetite for regional collaboration and community betterment and are coming together under that same umbrella and for that purpose. We are also very privileged to be co-chaired by Dan Houston, who recently retired as the CEO and executive chairman of Principal Financial Group, Mayor Courtney Clark from the city of Waukee, and David Stark from Unity Point Health. So again, our leadership structure, you can see that commitment to regionalism, to cross-sector collaboration. It's a really good example of how we're all coming together and working together on goals. I know this slide is a lot to look at, but it's such a good problem to have. So I would be remiss if I did not take a moment to acknowledge and thank the breadth of financial partners that Capital Crossroads has. These are all folks who have invested dollars into the work that we do. We fundraise annually to cover the cost of the work. We try to keep overhead quite low. We really do rely on our volunteer leaders and a lot of partners across community to help activate the work. But I think this is such a strong example of how community partners and leaders and organizations are willing to put their money where their mouth is and invest in work that is creating community betterment, driving economic growth, investing in quality of life initiatives, making sure that we have a region that is full of community vitality that people want to stay in and come to and build a life. So really incredible group of folks. We have more funders and a more diverse funding base than we've ever had before. Cities, businesses, nonprofit organizations, individuals, foundations, school districts, you name it. Folks are really invested and believe in this work, and it's really just a nice vote of confidence. There we go. Now, I certainly won't cover everything that we are working on right now. We have our hands in a whole lot of different things all the time, but I did want to give you a quick overview of some of the project highlights that we've been engaging in over the last couple of years. You all have access to our 2025 annual report and a mid-year update for 2026 on your tables that give a nice overview of some of these. You'll have opportunities to follow links that let you look at things a little bit more in depth that you won't be able to necessarily see on slides. So feel free to dig in there, check us out online if you want to learn a little bit more. But I will give you a little bit of an overview so you have a sense of how we move through space and how we create impact. And one issue that we're talking about every single week, no matter what we're working on, is the importance of workforce housing. And we aren't a developer, we're not out there building houses, we're not also lawmakers, so we're not behind a gavel passing legislation that is necessarily impacting things like zoning ordinances and land use codes and building codes. But what we can do is go out into community and listen to developers, listen to local elected officials, and try and figure out where are gaps in knowledge and progress that are keeping them from moving the ball as far and as fast as they might want to in an area like bringing more workforce and affordable housing to their community, right? People want housing that allows folks who are working in their community to also live there. They want to create opportunity for folks in their spaces. And so we work with housing experts and local decision makers on a weekly basis to talk about the importance of workforce housing, how it ties into all other regional issues like transportation, placemaking, jobs, education, public health, you name it. And then we, in order to address some of those gaps and create more informed conversations, we are having educational convenings where we're bringing diverse groups together to talk about these issues. We are creating new resources that help fill information gaps that currently exist and allow local decision makers to have more informed conversations, build better strategies to meet local need. And we're also doing advocacy on a local level. So you might see us at a city council meeting talking about the benefits of accessory dwelling units as a gentle density strategy, and why workforce housing matters to incorporate into a city's comprehensive plan, and things that are not very sexy but are also very important for us to be doing on a regular basis. You can see in the middle of this bottom of the slide there are a couple pictures of reports that we have completed and then released out to the public last year and early this year. The one on the right, the one on the left is a database of all of the housing developments in Polk, Dallas, and Warren counties that have federal funding attached to them to keep them more affordable. Timelines for when that affordability is set to expire, and what it might mean for those communities if that affordability does expire, and how many people may be displaced, and what that might mean for their workforce, for their school districts. And also an interactive database of where all of those are. So you might think that that would be information that cities would have ready access to, and they didn't. And so in order for them to better understand a full picture of their affordable housing landscape, we built it for them. And we provide them access to it free of charge. They can access it on their time frame, when they're building their plans, when they're building their strategies. We'll meet with them to talk through some of the finer details of that, but that's a really good example of Capital Crossroads identifying a need and filling it in order to make progress. The report on the right is a really fascinating piece of research that is all about missing middle housing. So housing that has a higher demand than supply currently in our region, and will keep folks who are trying to work in community housed here as well. And so this not only looks at parcels of land currently that are owned either privately or publicly but underutilized, that are owned by faith-based organizations, and creates a list of potential housing developments that could be placed onto that land, the zoning codes that would need to be updated in order to do that development, and also an estimate of cost for building those certain housing typologies, whether it's a cottage court, a multifamily development like an apartment building, a duplex, a quadplex, a single family home. Again, really trying to take the mystery and the work out of these conversations for local decision makers and developers, provide them that resource, publicly and free of charge, so they can have more informed conversations and create more informed strategies on how to reach regional housing goals. We also do things like partner with DART and the Metropolitan Planning Organization and Polk County Housing Trust Fund to allow 75 community leaders to join a sneak preview of one of DART's new commuter routes, Route 4, which is serving a lot of folks who are in the workforce, to come and learn about how DART's newly designed or redesigned network helps better serve community, helps provide better opportunity for folks who are in the workforce and seeking education, how public transportation ties into areas like housing and education and arts and culture. We not only allowed people a sneak preview of this route and had an opportunity to teach them about all of these things, but we created a resource that was then distributed to all local elected officials in all of DART's member communities, so they have a tangible item that they can reference when they're having conversations about the importance of public transportation and how it ties into other issues. So we're out here every week talking about housing, how it matters, and inspiring people to become better informed, to work together and take action that is going to help us better meet our regional housing need. Career pathways. This was a fascinating project that we worked on over the course of a couple of years and continues to evolve. So again, in conversations at Capital Crossroads with organizations like the Greater Des Moines Partnerships Workforce Collaborative and in school districts, there's a lot of conversation about, do we have the resources and the infrastructure in place to meet the need of our evolving talent pipeline and the evolving needs of the employers that exist here currently and the employers that we want to bring here through economic development? And how do we get there? How do we make sure that we have these needs met? And it's great to vision forward, but it's very difficult to envision fully how we're going to get to where we want to go if we don't know where we are right now. And so that was a gap in knowledge that we had locally. So Capital Crossroads endeavored to work across all different groups over the course of about 18 months to identify most, certainly not all, but most of the workforce development organizations and initiatives in Polk, Dallas, and Warren County that were helping to build talent locally. We put all of it in one place. It's publicly accessible and an interactive map, a tool that is largely for workforce development professionals and business leaders, education leaders, nonprofit leaders, but also job seekers can come if they want to look and see what opportunities there are. But this is publicly available on the Greater Des Moines Partnerships website now, and we know that it's being used by nonprofit organizations that are looking at it and understanding how they better fit into the current ecosystem. Are there opportunities for them to collaborate? Are there additional gaps in the services that we're providing? Can these organizations scale? Do they need to consolidate if there's overlap? So there's a lot to be learned from seeing all of this in one place. And we continue to update this map on a regular basis. This is something that I updated a couple weeks ago when I learned about a new resource. So it continues to grow and evolve. We know it'll never be fully complete, but there's a lot that you can learn from looking at this resource. And it's being used for things like, how do we know that the Community Health Improvement Plan is engaging the right groups that are helping to serve veterans and folks who are re-entering society after serving time in incarceration? You can go look at this map and identify the organizations that are working in that space. We know that youth serving organizations that focus on mentorship are looking at this and identifying opportunities for them to expand their programming. So again, really great, free, publicly available resource that's been created that is community-driven, crowdsourced, community-informed in order to help advance everyone's shared goal of strengthening our local talent pipeline and better serving employers and creating opportunity. This year, we actually just signed a contract for this project that's an evolution of this that's really exciting. We're going to be doing a research project on skills-based pathways. So we know that a career pathway for everybody doesn't necessarily include a higher education degree. We know that there are folks who have been in the workforce for some time who do not intend to get a college degree, but they have a robust skill set. And so there are still a lot of jobs out there that require a college degree, even though the skills that they are requesting of an employee match the skills of these people who do not have that degree. And so there's a little bit of a mismatch there, that the skills align, but the requirements do not. And so we're trying to talk to, we know that there are organizations out there that are talking to HR departments with businesses and nonprofits and school districts and local government to try and reimagine what that requirement looks like, and is it actually needed for certain positions that aren't necessarily, you know, a lawyer or a doctor or an engineer, but somebody who can come in and help run a call center or do project management. That there is a lot of alignment, and then if we provide those opportunities, not only do employers have wider access to a skilled talent pipeline, but our folks who are working in community have access to jobs that are going to pay them more money and give them better benefits and provide better opportunity for themselves and their families, and that all benefits community. And so we're going to be doing a research project on some of the skilled pathways that are aligned with some of our high demand jobs in targeted industries in central Iowa. And we're going to take that one step further, and we are going to look at how implementation of AI might impact not only these skilled pathways, but some of these jobs that are providing opportunity in central Iowa as AI integration continues to roll out. Really interesting stuff. We're hoping to have that research complete and rolled out to community by the end of this year. Early childhood education, we understand and advocate for wanting the strongest possible outcomes, meaning you have to invest early and create the strongest possible start for our kiddos. They're our most precious resource in central Iowa. So we work kind of around the edges. Again, we're not educators and we're not necessarily out there providing childcare, but we want to talk about the importance of investing in these opportunities and what they mean long-term for not only families, but also the kiddos. Over the course of 2024 and early 25, we advocated to have the early childhood education program reintroduced at Des Moines Central Campus, and there's a dual benefit here. Not only does that help create a pipeline of workers who are going to go directly into childcare, we know that there's a shortage of workforce for our childcare centers, which limits the amount of childcare slots, which limits how many people can actually access that care. That has a cascade effect. So hopefully addressing some of that childcare workforce pipeline issue, but also knowing that if childcare isn't that person's calling, they're still setting up on pathways to get a degree in education. And we also know that teachers are a high need in Iowa. So that's kind of creating a dual impact both in youth investment and economic opportunity. And we know that students are in that program currently, and that's really exciting. We've also advocated directly to the state legislature to increase funding for all-day pre-K using data. We know that if kids have access to all-day pre-K, the benefits are enormous and quantifiable across the spectrum. And so we worked with some of our leaders to do an educational video that advocates, and not only did we have education leaders as part of that, but as Capital Crossroads and our cross-sector approach, we also recognized an opportunity to bring Mayor Connie Bozen into that conversation and Big Gun Dan Houston to talk about why investing in pre-K matters to large-scale employers. Again, always trying to find opportunities to tell stories that have the broadest appeal and biggest impact, and will hopefully bring as many people as possible to the table to have those collaborative conversations. We also hosted a couple panel discussions and informational sessions with our regional council to inform and activate them on the importance of those public school bonds that were passed last year. Thank goodness in the fall, we know that we have to invest in our public school systems because they support stronger communities and stronger outcomes for our kiddos. And earlier this year, we actually, Claudia's part of this, but we released a short film all about the importance of investing in childcare and how childcare investments impact our community and lack of childcare impacts our community. And that's really meant to serve as an advocacy tool and an evergreen storytelling resource that childcare centers, educators, folks who work in the nonprofit space focused on early childhood education can use to help tell that story on a regular basis. Economic mobility. This is a little bit of an undercurrent in a lot of what we do. So we have been partnering with Mid-Iowa Health Foundation and Uplift since last fall to talk about economic mobility and creating pathways to success and well-being for Central Iowans. So we've now hosted a couple of workshops where we brought in a national research firm that has done some really innovative research into the life experiences that have a quantifiable impact on someone's lifetime economic mobility potential. And talking about how we can, as a region, more strategically collaborate and invest in organizations that are providing those opportunities and bring them up to scale, increase the probability of those programs coming to our community, and talking about how economic mobility benefits everyone. So last fall we hosted a workshop with about 70 folks. Earlier in January, we had a focused panel discussion as part of the MLK Junior Breakfast that the YMCA hosts. And then last month, actually, it was the featured topic at the Iowa Council of Foundations summer meeting, where we brought that research firm back and talked about what other regions are doing around the country to really have a quantifiable impact on things like investing in childcare, investing in housing, and creating economic mobility as a result. So that's also a good example of how some of these conversations, it's not just a single convening where you don't bring it up again. This is a convening that has continued to grow and build its following, that's moved from regional to different sectors and now statewide. Lead forward. I was also talking to Josh about this. Something that I'm sure everyone in this room cares about is emerging leadership, and how do we keep young leaders in this community and engage them in work meaningfully and give them opportunity to contribute so they want to stay here and build a life here and continue to enrich the community. And so we've been working on a targeted engagement effort since early last year to bring more young emerging leaders into the fold in conversations about regional collaboration and how these issues intersect with one another, and how we work together effectively in order to create more equitable opportunity. And we've done this in a few different ways, whether it's a networking reception where young leaders have access to folks like Dan Houston and Claudia Schabel and Artis Kelly and Mayor Connie Bozen in a very casual setting, and can create that mentoring relationship and have access to information, but also to put them through simulations like the same regional transit planning exercise that Scott Sanders went through while DART was working on its Reimagine plan. We gave young professionals and emerging leaders the opportunity to do that same transit planning exercise with the same contractors, so they had a better understanding of how challenging it is to reimagine public transportation in Central Iowa. Gave them more appreciation for not only that service, but also the strategy that went behind it, and how important it is to work together in order to create the strongest possible plan for everyone. And you'll hear it here first, but we also have a storytelling video coming up that serves as an evergreen resource to talk about why emerging leaders belong at the table when we're talking about regional planning and addressing issues like this, to not only observe and listen, but contribute meaningfully, why their voices have to be part of that conversation. So we'll be rolling that out as either this week or early next, which I'm really looking forward to. But just making sure that again, diversity of perspective includes age diversity. So we want to make sure that those folks are in the room. We covered a lot, and it's still kind of hard to wrap your head around Capital Crossroads. I've been here 2.5 years. I'm still learning about Capital Crossroads every day. But this is really a shared articulation of what our region can and should be, but it truly only becomes a reality if people invest in its success. And that means talking to folks like you and helping you understand how the work that you're doing and bringing to the table on a daily basis contributes to the advancement of this shared regional vision plan, and helping you think about ideas how you can activate your network and your resources in order to advance these shared goals. So follow us on social media if that's your thing. You can also sign up for a monthly newsletter. We won't spam you, it's just once a month. You can also just check out our website when you want to. We update project highlights, but there's a lot of good information there. And if you know of other places where Capital Crossroads should either be listening in or contributing or presenting so more people are in the loop, let us know. You can reach out directly either to that general email address, or that's my personal contact information. You can reach out at any time. It's also included in the annual report, so you don't have to feel like you have to screenshot the slide. But I'm available to answer questions now, and if you want to connect in the future, I'd be delighted.
Could you explain how just the 3 counties were included and why you were at that 3-county level rather than like a 6 or a 9-county level?
Yep. So the question was, supposed to repeat the questions. The question was why the 3 counties, Polk, Dallas, and Warren, were selected in order to engage this work. And that's been an evolving conversation. My understanding is that when Capital Crossroads first came to be, it was really Des Moines centric. In previous iterations, then they had the idea of a golden circle where it was going to be anchored by the state capitol, and there was a 50-mile radius around the state capitol. And then in this iteration, they decided Polk, Dallas, and Warren County. And I think 3 counties was still enough that they could wrap their arms around it and focused in population centers that made sense, but also a little bit more inclusive than what it had been in the past. So making sure that there are more rural perspectives represented, that we're not just focused in Des Moines proper, that we have folks like Mayor Tom Phillips from the city of Norwalk with a seat at the table talking about what things look like for them, making sure that Indianola has a chance to talk about their housing. So I think not so big that we can't manage it, but a little bit bigger than what we've done before. And then we also have really strong partners that have different footprints that engage in work. So I'm housed at the Greater Des Moines Partnership. They have a 12-county footprint. So in the counties that I'm not necessarily working in on a weekly basis, they can take the messaging of Capital Crossroads and go engage their counties to talk about it a little bit more. Yes?
Katie, thank you for the presentation and for the work that you're doing. So in the past week or two, we've had Des Moines pull out of the development project around the soccer stadium. Des Moines is looking at killing tax abatement and tax increment financing, and it's not just Des Moines. Altoona and Pleasant Hill have killed their tax abatement programs, and other communities in your area are considering doing the same thing. So how do you advance economic development, affordable housing, and quality of life against headwinds like that? And the corollary to that is none of this is their fault or your fault. It's being mandated from the state legislature. So what work do you do to get up there and say, why are you pumping the brakes on economic development in the state?
That's a great question. So the
Good luck repeating it.
To summarize, if I may, and correct me if I misstate, there are evolving economic headwinds in central Iowa. There has been state legislation passed down that is creating the need and urgency for cities to reevaluate programs like tax abatement, TIF, and property taxes. We know that there are going to be cuts that are coming up. How do we, though we're not responsible for those changes, how do we navigate those changes and that evolving environment in order to impact issues like economic development, affordable housing, etc.? Fair representation?
Even better than I said.
Great. It's hard. Not being a direct service provider, it's a double-edged sword. So we don't have formal tax status. We really and truly are just a community collaboration. So we have flexibility to move through space a little bit differently, to respond to needs differently. We have fewer regulations tying us to certain things. So we have a lot of flexibility to be able to move through and help have conversations that are collaborative, that we're bringing people together, and also creating a shared space where we can have tough conversations, just providing that forum where people can come together. We very recently had an AI panel, an interactive workshop, where we brought diverse perspectives together, and there was some conversation on the front end of like, well, I've been in other AI events already this year, and we've talked about XYZ, and at our panel, we talked about environmental impact and placement of data centers and people being displaced and biases and AI models and a lot of the sticky things that you don't want to talk about elsewhere. And so I'm getting to your question, I promise, but Capital Crossroads is a unique format and it's a unique forum with a unique purpose. And so we're not necessarily going to be impacted the same way as our partner organizations, as our regional council members might be impacted by some of that legislation. It basically just changes how we talk about the issues, the urgency of the issues, the probability of progress progress in some of those areas, the scale and the speed by which we may be able to affect change. And we want to continue to serve as that forum where you can have those honest conversations and identify creative, collaborative workarounds to some of this. We know that our communities are going to be impacted. I think a good example of how we have responded and leveraged our regional activation platform of Capital Crossroads is talking people through things like the importance of public school bonds, talking people through the importance of maintaining investment in DART and in Bravo and in Catch Des Moines. Talking about the importance of regional collaboration and that we cannot go this alone, even though it might be easier to pull to your own respective corners and kind of take care of what's immediately in front of you. We need to maintain that long-term shared vision and use the lens of long-term regional collaboration that is bringing people together. So it's going to make our job harder. We know that we can't necessarily be advocating as hard for things like funding all-day preschool across the entire state because it's probably not going to happen. So how can we continue to work around the edges and do things like working within a system that already exists to bring back a program that is addressing a talent pipeline and have people build faith and confidence and things like that and keep them coming to the table to have these conversations. So it's hard, but we have the opportunity to serve as a forum to share diverse perspectives and problem solve and come up with creative solutions. One more question? Yes.
Katie, thank you for giving visibility into this very interesting topic. You're an excellent presenter, and I think you would make a wonderful Rotarian.
Thank you.
I don't have a question, I just want to say you did a great job.
Well, thank
We'd
you.
love to have you as well.
He said I would be a great Rotarian. I'm repeating.
Vote. All in favor?
Aye. You're in. They just voted you in. Huh?
Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Sean, you stole my closing punchline there. I was also going to extend the invitation, but great job, Katie. Certainly we are a much better region with your leadership. We joked before that good civic leaders should work themselves out of a job after seeing the presentation. There's a lot to cover, so I think you're safe, but we certainly appreciate your leadership, and we're all beneficiaries of that in the region, so thank you very much. Upcoming speakers. So we do have we extended the deadline to reserve your spot. We can go up to 3 o'clock on Wednesdays, so that's something that we've heard a lot of people say, well, I forgot, and then I feel like I can't show up. So still try to reserve your spot by 9, but we do have an extension with the Embassy Club until 3, so just FYI on that. So you can see that in your Friday email link or Tuesday newsletters. And now to the speakers. We've got Dr. Doug Jacobson on September 3rd, next week, the first meeting in September, on cybersecurity, cyber scams. September 10th, we have Beth Shelton, CEO of Girl Scouts of Greater Iowa. And September 17th, our own Ann McFarland's husband, Will, was a guest last week, and we're hoping he returns to speak to us on the 17th. So, upcoming events, we have Golf Fellowship tonight. So there's a couple tee times, so looking forward to that. We'll be at Waveland. Morning Fuel is going to move to October. I think we talked about that, but our spot is being closed, so we'll find a new home for the Morning Fuel events, and more to come on that. September 15th, we have a pretty full 30 golfers in our member guest best shot at Waveland, and 30 golfers through 5 clubs, so that will be a fun afternoon of golf and Rotarian Fellowship. September 23rd, Sam just sent an email out for Pickleball Fellowship, which I've never been, but it looks like a great spot at the Striking Sparrow Lounge down on Southeast 6th Street. So let Sam know if you want to play 4 to 6 on the 23rd, and then the 24th is our new member appreciation thank fall social at the Des Moines Art Center, 4 to 6:30. If you have not registered, please do so. Please bring a guest. Please attend if you're able. It'll be a great evening with some good food and music. So thank you for being with us today, for being a vital part of Rotary. Thanks to all of our visitors. Make the most of your Rotary journey this week. Skeet told me to hit the thing hard, so I'm going to hit the thing hard. We are officially adjourned.